Hey, it's your boy Joe, the Wealth Architect, and I'm coming live and direct from the ATL, from Chocolate City. It's my third time in Atlanta, and always like coming to Atlanta. Something kind of grounding about it, a lot of history here. But anyway, I'm here for a 2-day podcast summit. Starts today, ends tomorrow, full day. So I normally don't drink coffee, but I had some coffee today because I know I'm going to have to be up. It's from 9 to 7, which is unusual. But anyway, I'm excited about it, and I'll be sharing lots of pics and videos with you guys as the day proceeds. And but anyway, I want to talk about my firm position that being broke is not an option. Being broke is not an option. Now, I know some people might say, well, the bills are piling up. Don't have the funds coming in. I'm formerly incarcerated. Whatever reason we want to use. I get all that. But at the end of the day, again, being broke is not an option. What that means is that we may struggle from time to time. I get that. But at the end of the day, we can't have a broke mindset, right? As you know, I've been talking a lot about mindset, because when it comes to personal finance, at the end of the day, it ultimately is about mindset, right? You can have all types of external circumstances. All those things are, real. So there's no, deluding ourselves. But at the end of the day, it boils down to our mindset. So when I say being broke is not an option, I don't just mean broke in terms of money. I'm talking about having a broke mindset, right? Where we think about or focus on lack, what we don't have, right? And how we are at a disadvantage, how things have not been fair or anything like that. Again, all those things may be true, but it's ultimately about mindset. I served 25 years in prison, and that was not easy, as you can imagine. And yet, I did not allow it to put me in a broke mindset. I always thought about wealth. I always thought about more, about abundance and what was possible in my life, right? And in my family's life. And because I focused on that day in and day out throughout the struggle, and when I say focus on it, I mean I read books. I mean a lot of books, and I internalized it, and I taught it. And I taught it more, And so as a result, it became a part of my psyche, a part of the way I thought, the way I showed up in the world, the way I felt about myself and my position in the world. And so as a result, as with anyone else, we are what we think. So if we think broke, then we will be broke. Right? So I'll say that again. If we think broke, then we will be broke or stay broke, right? So because you may be struggling now, because you may be monetarily broke, doesn't mean that you have to stay that way. The moment you begin to think with a wealth mindset, an ownership mindset, the moment you begin to think about how your life can be better financially, how you can have more, the moment you internalize that, meaning you believe it, right? Even if you don't have external evidence of it, the moment you believe that, then there's something about how the mind and body works. There's a term, psychosoma, right? That basically means that there's a body-mind connection or mind-body connection. And it's very real. It's very real. And so the more we think about a certain thing, the more it takes shape, so to speak, and form in our bodies, right? We begin to feel it, right? It begins to become real. And so when I talk about broke is not an option, and I mean that literally and figuratively, what I mean is that we cannot afford, those of us who have done stretches of time, 5, 10, 15, 20 years in prison, we cannot afford to have a broke mindset. Having struggled throughout most of our lives, right? Before prison, during prison, and after prison or jail, right? Because we have experienced that, many of us have internalized a broke mindset. And what the SSI method, my 3-part framework for building wealth, is all about is just that, about wealth building. It's not about being broke. There's no room for being broke, right? Not having a broke mindset or a poor mindset, and not being materially poor, right? This is about wealth building. And you can't attract wealth if you have a broke mindset. They don't go together, right? They just don't go together. Now you might ask, so how do I go from, I don't know where the hell I am, but I'm gonna find my way. I really don't know where I am, except that I'm in Atlanta, right? But how do you go from having a broke mindset to a wealth mindset? Well, the first part is to acknowledge that your thoughts may be limiting, right? Your limiting beliefs may be holding you back, right? That despite rejections as far as a job, despite bills piling up and just not having the income in, what may be contributing or adding on to your circumstances is having limiting beliefs that, sorry about that, but limiting beliefs that cause you to remain broke, right? And so the first thing is to acknowledge that you have limiting beliefs, that is very real, that it may be holding you back, right? The second thing, and this is really easy, I mean, believe it or not, the second thing is to come up with an alternative belief, right? And part of that, and this is critical, part of that is believing that you are worthy. Believing that you are worthy. That is so important. One of the things that has helped me throughout my entire life, even when I wasn't always conscious of it, is my belief that I am worthy of good things. So you need to believe that you are worthy of abundance, worthy of wealth, worthy of good things. Without that, you just won't get far, right? You have to believe that you are worthy of good things. So again, the first part is to acknowledge that your limiting beliefs may be holding you back from building wealth, right? And it would be a good idea to spell out those beliefs, right? So you might say, I never had money, so I am not worthy of money. It may be something as simple as that, right? But spell it out, right? So before we dispel it, we want to identify what it is, right? Again, before we dispel it, we want to identify what it is, right? All right, got a little traffic here. Again, I still don't know where I am, but I'm enjoying myself with you guys. So I'm just gonna walk on until I find my way, right? See if I can find some identifying building, and I'll get there, I'll make it, right? But anyway, so once you've identified and spelled out what those limiting beliefs, what you will find is that they're not real. That they're not real, right? That you've made them up, right? Now, while there might be some truth to, right? We don't want to, dispel that and just rule that out. There may be some truth, but for the most part, it is made up. It is not real. And because the mind is a funny thing, right? Whatever we say to ourselves, whatever self-talk we have to ourselves, the more often we say it, it seems real because we said it, right? Even if it comes from someone else, right? So meaning someone else, a parent, a sibling, a friend, people in your class, whatever the case might be, because they may have said stuff over the years, or months or weeks or whatever, and then we adopt it, right? We internalize it, we take it on and make it our own, then we think it's real. Just because we have those limiting beliefs, it doesn't mean that they're real, right? The unfortunate thing is that we act out on it, right? I mean, we are, like I said, it's psychosoma. So we say it in our minds, like we say it outside, meaning verbally, we verbalize it. We, let's see, now I'm on, I don't know where the hell I'm at, Georgia State University. Bear with me, right? So at least I know I'm not alone. I'm with you guys, right? I will figure this out. But anyway, so we internalize it, and I think I'm going the wrong way. We internalize it, and then in our minds, but also in our bodies, we act it out, and it becomes second nature, right? So we operate on autopilot. What I'm suggesting is that we reverse it, and that we tell ourselves good things, right? If we're gonna tell lies to ourselves, and I hate to say it this way, then, and this is not a lie, but I'll just say for the sake of discussion, if we're going to tell ourselves anything, right, something that does not serve us, why not tell ourselves things that do serve us? Why not? Well, I mean, what do you have to lose? If you're already struggling financially, if you already have a broke mindset and want to change it, then let's change it. Let's simply come up with a different type of self-talk. Let's tell ourselves, right, daily, throughout the day, I am worthy. I am worthy. I'm worthy of good things. I am worthy of wealth. I am worthy of abundance. And when I say these things, I'm talking financially, but I'm also talking about relationship-wise, right? Health-wise. Because those things are equally, if not more important. Money is important, as I've said in past videos, right? But there are some things that are just as important or more important. Our health, for example, having good health is more important, right, than money. Our relationships are or can be more important than money. And so, all right, so I think, let's see, trying to find my way here back to my hotel. Let's see. But again, start with the first step. Let me just digress because I'm trying to make sure I don't get too lost. But the first step is to identify those limiting beliefs, spell them out, write them down, say it, look at it, right? And then think about, let's go this way, and then, okay, now I see where I'm at. I'm at the bottom. I see exactly where I'm at. Okay, like I said, been to Atlanta a few times. I went too far south, so I gotta go straight up. Okay, got it. And then the next step is to replace those negative thoughts with positive thoughts, with healthy self-talk, right? It's really that simple. And then the third step is to follow it up with action. So 3 steps. Identify limiting beliefs, spell them out. Second step, replace it with positive self-talk, affirming thoughts, right? So you can internalize that. The more you say it to yourself, the more you say it to others. I am worthy. Write it down. Say it to others. Say it to yourself. The more you do it, your mind begins to believe it. And then, as it does, then the next step is to act on it. Act on it. Take the baby steps. So let's talk about those baby steps, right? We're not talking about any Herculean, big, huge steps that might discourage you from actually acting. We're talking about taking baby steps. Those baby steps include starting with a budget, right? Before we can get our finances together, we need to have a budget. Because what a budget does, right, among other things, is it lets you know where you stand, where you're at, right? And for a lot of people, they don't want to even look at their finances, right? They don't want to look at their credit card bills, or they don't want to look at your receipts, or whatever case might be, because they serve as reminders of how, what you might say, terrible you are when it comes to money, right? But they have a saying, you can't manage what you don't measure. Again, you can't manage what you don't measure. So if you don't measure where you're at when it comes to your money, then you won't be able to effectively manage it, right? So we want to get our finances in order. And so the first step in doing that is to develop a budget. Now, when a lot of us hear the word budget, it sounds restricting. Sounds like you can't spend, you can't, enjoy life. That is not true. I mean, it's just not true. And I think the reason why some of us believe that is because in our school system, they don't teach personal finances. And so they don't talk about what a budget is, what its purpose is, and how you can actually use it as a way to determine how you want to put your money to work, right? That's how I see it, right? So it's not that I am restricted, it's more so about how I can manage and allocate and dictate where my money goes, right? I can basically put my values to work through how I spend my money, because that's what we do anyway. Even if we're not aware of it, however we spend money from day to day, month to month, it is a reflection of our values, of what is important to us in that moment or at that given time, right? That's what a budget reflects. So now that we are changing our mindset from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset, from a broke mindset to a wealth mindset, our values change. We value wealth. We value abundance. And so our budget should reflect that. And what do I mean by that? That means that on a line item basis, like each item that is on your budget. Meaning if you look at the past, let's say month or 2 or 3, and you see, for example, if you're honest with yourself and you go through each item on your, let's say, bank statement, right? Because sometimes you got to look backwards before we can move forward. So you look backwards, you go in the rearview mirror, and you see that you've been doing a lot of dining out, right? That you've been spending a lot of money on Lyft and Uber, that you've been spending money on smoking, whether cigarettes, weed, right? Drinking, partying, hanging out, kind of like aimless stuff. And this may not speak to all of you, but I'm sure I'm speaking to some of you. Those things, those value-based spending habits that you have do not serve you, right? They do not move you towards wealth. They do the opposite. They keep you broke. And they come from a broke mindset. So having a budget, the first part is to look at those items, to look at your statements, and to basically begin to categorize them, right? And one simple way is to draw a list, right, on a piece of paper, write down at the top 2 words. On the left side, put needs. On the right side, put wants. Needs and wants. Put a line down the middle, draw a line down the middle, and all right, now I see where I'm at. I'm gonna go this way. So now, then, item by item on your budget, or actually it's not a budget yet, but on your, from your statements, from your monthly statements, write down each item and put them in their appropriate column, right? So if you had a Lyft ride, for example, was it a need or want? Put that on your list. If you went out to dinner with friends or whomever, put it down as a need or want. Go down the list, one item at a time, and determine if each item was a need or a want. Okay, now I see where I'm at. I was supposed to go the other direction. Okay, got it. So that's the starting point, right? The starting point is to get centered in terms of your needs and wants. Before we can get our money together, before we can really put into practice what I'm talking about when I talk about having a spending plan, a savings plan, and an investing plan, before we can get into those things, we really need to first do an inventory, if you will, of your spending, right? Of how you spent in the past and how they reflect your values, right? This is not about beating up on yourself. It's simply about getting oriented to a wealth mindset. So if you're following me, where I'm going with this, write in the comments, I hear you, I got this, right? I hear you, I got this, right? So now the next step is, once you've done that, now you have a very good idea. Once you go down the list, every single item on your monthly statement, and you go down and you determine if each item was a want or a need, now you're in a good position to then switch from the things that were wants, because I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure if you are broke or you feel broke, then I'm pretty sure that your wants exceeded your needs, right? In other words, you bought more things or spent more money on things that you wanted than you needed, right? And so, again, the whole purpose of this is to reverse it, is to change it, right? Is to go to from focusing on your wants to focusing on your needs and changing how you spend, right? So that we can then begin to get into some of the other, right, important parts of the SSI method. If you want to know more about the SSI method, click the link below where you can get chapter 1 of my book, The SSI Method, and learn more about how you can get your spending in order, your savings in order, and your investing in order. That is it. It's a 3-part wealth building framework that I devised for people impacted by the criminal justice system. It works because I have used it and others have used it to begin to think differently about money and to act differently about money, to begin saving more, to begin investing more, right? So again, it's a 3-part framework, the SSI method, spending plan, savings plan, and investing plan. So without belaboring the issue or the point, once we develop a budget, we can then say, once we go through those, go through our statements and determine that we have listed more wants than needs, we could reverse it. And we can now focus on having our money work for us by cutting back on those expenditures that are most likely focused or stem from our emotions. We can go from that to spending purposefully, right? Spending purposefully. And so that's where we at with that. And so now what we want to do, it's a little loud here, so bear with me, all right? Bear with me. Apologize for the background noise. Didn't know I was going to be on the highway or close to it. So now we want to go from spending based on emotions and spending mindlessly to spending purposefully. We can then begin to cut back on spending and to put more of that money towards savings, right? That's the next step, right? So before we even jump to investing, we want to save. We want to have an emergency fund, right? A rainy day fund, whatever we want to call it. We want to make sure that we have some money set aside for when things get tough, so that we don't stay broke, right? We don't feel squeezed in or pinched, right? So then, let me go back up to Peachtree. So then, get off this noisy block. From savings, then we can begin to get into investing, right? So I drew it out, right? I wanted to take my time and go through this because too often we think that this stuff is beyond our capability, right? That it is too difficult, that it's not for us. And again, like I said, I'm formerly incarcerated, spent 25 years in prison, have been home almost 9 years, and it's simply a mindset shift when it comes to this money, getting money, right? It's simply that. It really is simply that. And then from the mindset shift, we go to actually changing our habits, because we begin to internalize. It goes from our psyche, from our minds, to our bodies, right? Right? Meaning that we can feel it feels differently, and then we act differently. We act differently. We become a different person. You are what you think. Whatever you focus on primarily or mostly during the days, whatever you focus on, you become. So you are not broke, right? You may have a broke mindset, but you are not broke. And you're not broken, right? We are capable of big things. I'm going to say that again. We are capable of big things, even after incarceration. Incarceration is real. It is an experience, but it's not the end result, right? It's not an end result. It's not the end of the road, right? There is life after incarceration. There is abundance after incarceration. But it goes from having a broke mindset to a wealth mindset. So if you've been following me, following what I'm saying, if you get what I'm saying, again, say in the comments, I hear you, Joe. I got this, right? And tell me what your wealth mindset looks like. Tell me what positive words you will use to affirm, to make very real that you now embody a wealth mindset, that you are not broke, you are wealthy, right? And it could just be that. You might say, I am not broke, I am wealthy. Whatever it is that you say, just be sure that you believe it and that you say it to yourself over and over again. And I'll check back in, do a similar video to pick up from here to see where you're at when it comes to this. Again, thoughts are things, thoughts are real. And with that said, let's get this money.